And I always discuss the importance of them playing with as many different people as possible,
Mhm.
because it's the only way to develop a great groove with everybody is to have a great internal sense of time. And if you have an internal sense of time, you can play with anybody because you can find that happy medium. But to get to the funky, like the really gut bucket stuff, one, I have them go back and listen to older material and listen to how loose something is.
Welcome to episode 123 of the Bass Shed Podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. What's up, folks? What's up, folks? What's going on? Welcome to the Bass Shed Podcast. I'm really excited about this episode. I am joined by Mr. Reggie Hamilton. I will talk more about Reggie in just a second, but first I want to talk about the reasons why it's taken me so long to release another podcast episode. All right, I've been doing some things. Folks. Ryan, what have you been up to? I'm glad you asked. And I'll tell you what I've been up to. Not only am I finishing up volume 1 of the Jerry Jamont transcription book, right? Jerry's been coming over to the studio, and we were shooting the kind of behind the scenes videos with him where he talks about the recording sessions and he talks about, like the real world things that led to him being on these records. A lot of them are really, really fascinating. So we're doing that. At one point, I was over at Jerry's place and we were talking about something. And Jerry's got ideas for like volume 2 and volume 3 of the transcription book, and I'm like, wow, Jerry, slow down a little. But we did come up with a cool concept for volume 2 of like the next book of transcriptions of Jerry Jamont bass lines. And during that process, we ended up kind of stumbling on this idea to shoot a documentary. So Jerry and I have been working on putting together a documentary that is a huge undertaking, and I've never shot a documentary before, so I'm learning a lot about all that. And we had a meeting with a production company earlier this week. That went well, and we're moving forward on that. So I will have more information about the documentary project we have going on soon. I will have more information about that soon. Also, I co-designed and started construction on an upright bass stand, right? So I have an upright bass stand that I take to gigs. It's called the Bass Bar. I like it. Super portable. It's easy. There's some like joints that are wearing out on it, so I'm probably gonna revamp that stand and build one very similar. But this one, I was looking for like a pedestal style stand to have here at the studio. One of the wooden box types where you just kind of set your bass down in. And I'd been looking around at a bunch of different ones, and they were either like more money than I wanted to spend, or the kind of more affordable ones I don't think supported the bass well. Like I didn't feel comfortable having my bass in something like that. There's some like inexpensive DIY bass stands out there. Like the price made sense, but the stand did not make sense to me. So I decided to build one. I called my dad, told him about the idea. My dad is like a great woodworker. And so I called him. I'm like, hey man, I got this idea. I'll send you some measurements. Let's come up with something. So I sent him the measurements. He came up with a design. Really, really happening. I went out to Phoenix this last weekend. I subbed out a couple gigs. I went over to Phoenix this last weekend. We finished tweaking the design a little bit. We started construction on a couple of them. I brought them back. Work wonderfully. The only issue is, there was a lot more work involved in all that than I anticipated. So we're kind of going back, seeing how we can still continue to put them together, and maybe offer them to the public as well in a way that won't take us so long to build them. But I'm really excited about the stand. The stand works great. I think, in my opinion, it's one of the most supportive ones that are out there, and that will be affordable. I've seen some on Amazon that are like $300-$400, and that's cool for the folks that spent that money. All good. I wasn't looking to spend that on a bass stand. I'm hoping to release a very incredibly stable product that is has a thoughtful design and really takes care of the bass and supports the bass So we created it. We created that. Couple little design tweaks we're working out, and I will have more information about all of that, both things actually, the documentary and the stand, very shortly at thebassshedacademy.org.
Hi, this is Jerry Jamont. I want to tell you about my upcoming book of bass transcriptions, JJ's Jukebox Volume 1. This is a collection of over 15 of my bass lines in standard notation and tablature. They are accurately done here by Ryan Roberts of the Bass Shed Academy. Each transcription is accompanied by a video where I talk about what was happening during the recording session, how I got involved, and how I approached each song. Stop by the bassshedacademy.org to learn more about my book of transcriptions, JJ's Jukebox Volume 1, and purchase a signed copy of my memoirs, Make It Happen.
LemurMusic.com. Everything you need for the double bass can be found at LemurMusic.com. Shop their inventory of accessories, bows, basses, sheet music, whatever you need. Also, this just happened. I was down at Lemur last week. They are now carrying Fender electric basses. Most of us are probably familiar with the Fender product line, but Lemur Music, this is a new thing for them, right? They're getting into the electric. They have a wonderful assortment. They have the U.S. stuff. They have some made in Mexico basses. They have some Squires for beginners. There's a lot of great things happening for the electric bass. Also down at Lemur Music. LemurMusic.com. Everything you need for the double bass. On the episode is upright and electric bassist Reggie Hamilton. I met Reggie at the Watts Jazz Festival some months ago. I was there hanging out with Jerry Jamont. I went off kind of just putzing around, came back, ran into Jerry. He was speaking with Reggie. Reggie was there performing with Patrice Rushen. A little bit about Reggie Hamilton. He started playing the bass at age 11 and was fortunate enough to have New York bassist Kim Clarke as his first teacher. Reggie then took up double bass at age 13 and spent his early years kind of playing and hanging out in R&B and jazz clubs. Reggie has toured with the who's who of popular music and jazz music. Just some of the artists Reggie has worked with include Seal, Babyface, Queen Latifah, Billy Child, Christina Aguilera, Anita Baker, Bette Midler, George Duke, Whitney Houston, Stanley Clarke, David Lynch, John Mellencamp, Mariah Carey, Tina Turner. Like, the list just keeps going on. Reggie is a serious bad dude. I don't really know how to convey this, but when you talk to Reggie, and when I was talking to Reggie, and it's here on the episode, and it was there when I met him at the Jazz Festival, there's a vibe, right? There's just a strong vibe when you're talking to Reggie, and the vibe is not that Reggie vibes me at all. The feeling is you're talking to a master of the craft. Like, you're kind of in the presence of greatness. Like, he conducts himself with a lot of dignity and a lot of professionalism, and he's very discerning. That's recognizable here in the conversation. Like, how he thinks is very discerning, and how he acts is very discerning. How he plays is very discerning. It's a wonderful quality, and that alone is incredibly inspiring, and something that we can all take back to the practice room of just being that discerning. So even just the conversation with Reggie is inspiring about how it can grow me personally as a bass player. I had a wonderful time talking with Reggie, and here it is. Here's my talk with a living legend, Mr. Reggie Hamilton. Hey man, good morning. How you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Yourself?
Doing all right. Are you always an early riser?
Yeah, I'm usually up at 4:30.
Ooh, that's about what time I went to bed.
Yeah,
No, not true. But that's just kind of the nighttime is like when I get work done, and then that's when I latch. And then if I latch onto something, I end up going down a rabbit hole, and then next thing you know, it's 4 a.m.
Oh yeah, I spent plenty of years doing that. That's how I did my record.
Oh yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the record.
The old one or the new one?
Let's talk about the first one, because then I want to talk about what changed between number 1 and number 2. So, describe record number 1. What year was it released, and what year did you start?
2003.
Okay.
And a friend of mine, I was so bogged down. My family life was busy, and I was working all the time, and dealing with kids, and I think my ex-wife was sick during that period, so I was just putting it off, and my friend made me do it. She's like, you just have to do it just to say you did it.
Yeah.
So I sent the family to Barbados, actually,
Okay.
and I stayed and I worked, and I worked every day, all day, at night. I recorded drums at the house, guitars at the house. Actually, other than George Duke and Billy Childs. I recorded Billy at his house at his piano. I recorded George at his studio, but just the MIDI, and then I went back and he said, "Make whatever voice you want."
Hmm.
And I tried to do something that was kind of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was released in '03. How many tracks?
13.
13. Okay, that is a full record.
Well, it's really 9 with 4 interludes.
Okay.
Growing up during the whole Earth, Wind, and Fire thing, interludes is always cool.
Yeah.
So, so I have one. I actually sent it to Gary Carr, and he was surprised by the first interlude because it's just it's all arco.
Yeah.
And then we talked because he knew my mentor.
Okay.
But yeah, it was 9 tracks with 4 interludes. Billy Childs is on it, George Duke's on it, Sheila E.'s on it, Kirk Biscara,
Mm.
Bob Leatherbarrow, who's playing drums and vibes. Sheila E. Dino Saldo is playing saxophone, flute, and harmonica. Alex Lisandroni is playing on it, and I think I did the rest. And Jess
Okay.
Sutcliffe mixed it. The guy that used to mix for Prince. He mixed musicology for Prince. It's my longtime friend. He
Nice.
did a great job. Yeah.
So then so that came out in '03. When did the second one come out?
Second one hasn't come out.
Okay, still working on it.
Yeah, I'm going to release it this year.
Okay, that's big.
Yeah.
Where in the process are you? Are you to mix yet?
I'm to mix for some.
Okay.
There's Gary Novak's on it.
Nice.
Nate Morton from The Voice playing drums. Dino's on it again. Carl Burnett. I have a few solids that a couple of people owe me, so I'm gonna
Okay,
call them those
Colin.
chits.
Yeah, good. Do it.
And then I'll mix that as well. But the interesting thing about this record is that everything that was written, like everything from the last record, other than these 2 tunes, I wrote these film cues for this movie that Babyface was producing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended up not using because they ended up going with pop tunes for everything.
Okay.
So I turned them into pieces. One is the title cut, My Village. And the original movie was about these. Ruby Dee was in it, actually. It was this old couple that lost their son, and it's a movie about euthanasia.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit somber, but it's it. This but other than those 2 pieces, everything was written for that record. For this record, I wrote everything between 86 and 96.
Oh wow. Okay.
So these tunes have been sitting.
Right. They've just been hanging in the archives.
Yeah. There's one's this tune called Miranda, which is the moon. Anyway, and I wrote it for this band project I had with Billy Childs. It was Mike Miller. Initially, it was Dennis Chambers and Karen Briggs on violin.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dennis backed out, and so was Joey Heredia for a minute, then Tom Breckline.
Okay.
And then Vinny would come and sub from time to time, when we were stuck. But I never recorded it, so I know, right?
Yeah.
How lucky are we? Yeah, I'll do it. Sure.
Yeah, okay, fine. We're kind of in a pinch. Let's get Vinny. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, he was always busy, but it was nice of him to come and hang.
Sure.
And so I've got that piece, and I've got a good many others. Some things that I used to do on my live gigs.
Okay.
So it's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Is it kind of? I mean, that's a big span. That's a decade. Was it 86 to 96?
86 to 96 is when I wrote them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, is there kind of a through line in the writing concept, or is there a big shift in the
No,
compositions because that's a decade.
it's not really. I mean, because they're all me.
Yeah, there's that.
That is my work. So I'm
You're the through line, of course.
the through line,
Yeah.
as it were. So
Okay. When composing, what are some things you regularly get inspired by? You mentioned writing for film. Is like having a visual reference something that inspires you to compose?
sometimes not. I mean, it could be just about anything. It could be the sound of a door closing, and
Mhm.
maybe there's a rhythm in that that brings forth some things.
Sure.
I mean, we've all listened to so much music over the years.
Right. Yeah.
So it's almost anything can inspire me, and the inspiration can really come from anywhere. And I could pick up the bass, I could pick up the upright and come up with something. I could play the electric bass and come up with something. I could be driving in my car and singing. I'll grab
Mhm.
my phone and I'll save what I sang and then I'll write it out.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, or I could do it from the keyboard or from guitar. You know,
yeah. Mhm. How much when you get into the studio with all these world-class musicians, have you written parts for them or do you kind of give them a form and a set of changes and be like, come up with something? What do you give
unless
the
it's
musicians at the session?
unless it's a specific line
Mhm.
that I need them to play, like a melody of some dimension, or if we're playing some sort of shout chorus.
Sure.
Beyond that, it's open because I mean they're them. I'm
Right, right.
calling them because of who they are, what they do, and
That's right.
how they interpret the music, how they feel it.
Yeah, yeah.
Their sensibilities. I mean, the type of foods that we eat together. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But you can tell a lot about a person by what they eat and how they eat. You can,
That
you can.
that's true, I've never thought about it. I've
You
never
can
thought
tell
about
a
that.
lot about by how a person eats. You can tell a lot how they speak.
Mhm.
What they drink,
Yeah.
how they walk, their gait. You can
Sure.
tell a whole lot about a person.
Right, right,
How
right.
funky they are versus how soulful they are, because that's two
Yeah.
different things. You know,
I agree, but dig into that right there. Let's dig into that right there. How funky they
all
are
right.
versus how soulful they are. Um, Before we go further with let's define each one as you mean it. Funky meaning what?
Okay, so funky, their ability to lock into a groove, play phrases that are hip.
Mhm.
You know, their ability to lock into an ensemble and comprehend the music at hand and see the whole picture.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, now you can have that, but not necessarily be soulful.
Mhm.
So everything can be precise,
Right.
and it could be just behind the beat in the exact same place every time,
Yeah.
which is fine. Or it could be ahead of the beat depending on how the music is guided. But if it's thought as such, if it becomes if there's the mechanics of it's one thing, as opposed to all right,
Oh, hold on, hold
cat
on,
could
hold
be
on. What are we playing? What are we playing? Let's I mean, we
we're
gotta talk
playing.
about
This is a Federa. This is the Headless Emperor.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice.
You know, sorry, I think I have the thing on. I should. I don't know how to turn that off.
No, that's all right.
The blurry whatever
The
it
blurry
is.
thing, yeah.
So a cat can be. Uh, right? It can be solid, even and consistent, but
Right.
not necessarily dirty and groovy. Where
Yeah, yeah.
where's that
Got the swagger.
not only the swagger but that sense of history,
Mhm.
um, the comfort, that sort of laissez-faire kind of attitude where it's just is what it is. I'm not thinking
Yeah.
about what it is.
Right.
I just it's raw and gross and disgusting and rude. you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
it's
So
like, oh, I'd never play that. That's unschooled. But yes,
right,
and
right, but that's right, but that's what it is.
that's why you're not playing.
Um, yeah, That's a solid distinction that I think is regularly under addressed.
Oh, absolutely.
You teach?
I do. I was teaching at USC this past semester. Um,
Okay.
I I taught Damien when he was
Oh, okay.
small. When
Okay.
Damien was, so I knew Peter's father, Fred Erskine, and
Okay.
Fred actually brought Damien to my apartment.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, when he was like 10 or something like that. And yeah, I've taught a few. Joshua Crumbly was a student for a
Okay.
while. Duff McKagan took some lessons.
Okay.
Different people, and then I've taught at different schools. I've taught master classes.
How do you approach that concept of soulful versus funky, funky versus soulful? How do you approach that when talking to a student who's got the mechanics of a bass line? Take an iconic bass line, whatever. It doesn't really matter. They got the mechanics of it, but it's not it. It's not. It's not it. How do you go
Right, the
about talking
poetics of it
about
are
the it?
gone.
Yeah. How do you talk about the it factor?
Well, I aside from having them explore, it's my belief. It's like there are teachers that try to teach us to play like them.
Mhm.
Right. Then there are teachers that are just deal with form and function. Period. I'm a not a believer. I don't want anybody to play like me. I want them to serve the music because
Mhm.
that's the goal, the ultimate
Sure.
goal. So when I talk to them about it, I talk to them about not only how the player plays, but what their upbringing was, what their level of freedom was. And I always discuss the importance of them playing with as many different people as possible,
Mhm.
because it's the only way to develop a great groove with everybody is to have a great internal sense of time. And if you have an internal sense of time, you can play with anybody because you can find that happy medium. But to get to the funky, like the really gut bucket stuff, one, I have them go back and listen to older material and listen to how loose something is.
Mhm.
If their sense of time is solid, they can be as loose as they want.
Right.
Nathan Milstein, I think it was Nathan Milstein, the violinist, he said, exactness of intention develops elegance of style. Let's see if I have that.
Hmm.
Hold on.
Hmm.
Yeah, I believe
Exactness
I
of
have it.
intention develops
Develops
elegance.
elegance of style.
Develops elegance of style. I like that.
Yeah, exactness of intention produces elegance of style. Nathan
Okay.
Milstein. So working through every aspect of all that stuff, and then living too. I mean, it's like going out to play baseball, ride your bike, scuff your knee, date a girl, get your heart broken
Yeah.
again.
Right. Right.
Eat some crappy food, throw a bottle of wine down the sink because it's disgusting. Learn some stuff.
Yeah. That's right.
Learn and live.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those people like lived hard. Listen to it. Was it Elizabeth Cotton?
I'm not hip.
Oh, check her out.
Okay.
Check her out.
Okay.
Check
What's
out her
your what?
playing style. She was
Okay.
a sort of like a you would consider her a blues guitarist, early finger picking, beautiful
Okay.
finger picking, but she played a left-handed guitar righty,
Okay.
or she played a right-handed guitar lefty. Excuse me. So she would pluck the notes with her index and middle finger, the bass notes, and then she would thumb the melodies.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
in
On top.
reverse, yeah,
Right.
in reverse.
Right. It's now
So
what we would refer to as like the Hendrix thing, where you just flip it over, but she kept original tuning.
right, like Jimmy Haslett,
Right. Exactly.
or what's
I
that?
don't know of a guitar player that does it. I just know Haslip that keeps it the same way.
Haslett did it. There was his brother in Nashville, cat that had a mullet, kind of heavy. I think he lost weight. Keith something. He was killer.
Huh.
Yeah, there's some that do it. I know there are a couple of guitarists. Is that Reggie? Does No, Reggie Griffin plays right-handed. Rayford Griffin's brother.
Okay.
He plays right-handed with fingers. Yeah. There are some that do it. I know that. Not that many, but there are some. But she had a particular style of playing, but she lived her life too.
Right.
So it becomes it's no longer a case of I'm developing this because I'm building something, as opposed to this is my release, this is my sanctuary,
Right. Right.
and
This
it
is
just
all
happens to
part
come out.
of everything that happens outside of the practice room. This is an extension of that. This isn't an extension of just what happens inside the practice room. It's a
Right.
reflection of my day to day,
Of my
not a
day to day.
reflection itself.
Yeah, it's a
You know,
reflection of my day to day, my history, how my parents talk to me.
sure.
The first time I peed my pants in a public place,
Right, right. Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
all of that, all of
Right.
that, and that's what it is. So if one can maintain that sort of studious thing of going through every aspect, the minutia of things, and at the same time letting go and being free,
Sure.
then you have it.
What are some aspects of your playing that you really associate with that? And I asked this question specifically because doing session work, it's when you're
So
doing
that
the
can
job.
vary.
True, true, touche. But are there some aspects of your playing where it's like, yeah, that's kind of a fingerprint in my playing that is a reflection? And even to make this question even longer and more confusing, uh, your first record, you were going through some personal things. Was doing the record cathartic for you? I meant to ask you that while we were talking about your first record.
In some ways it was, just to have the release, like the type. Actually, I like the interludes the best
Okay.
on the record, and there's this one tune I have called "Shouts to My Brothers," which I like a lot. It's not the easiest tune to play,
Hmm.
to make sound, because it requires a level of finesse. That I
Is this
actually
on the double bass?
No, it's
This
on the
interlude?
electric bass.
Okay.
The interludes. The fourth interlude, the last one. I think it's listed as number 3. It's 2 electric basses, and
Okay.
every interlude is an improv. I
Yeah.
have no idea what I'm going to do. I just sort of do it. And but they brought some sort of release, because I do like just playing. I don't like having to think.
Sure.
I don't like having any. I want to turn that off. We think
Mhm.
enough in school. We think enough in class. We think enough when we're working. You know, and in some art forms, like in martial arts, you practice the way you play the way you practice, or you practice the way you compete the way you practice. Kind of.
Mhm.
When you work out whatever it is you work out, you keep it moving. And for music, it's the same thing. I just want to keep it moving. So I have that separation from this is an A, this is B, this is a C, or this is C minor 7 flat 5, or to and that D augmented is going to go there, what have you.
Right.
You should just hear it, feel it, keep it moving.
Sure.
For the record, it was a bit of a release for me. I think part just because I was off of the road.
Mhm.
That same year, Kurt Buscara and I were out with this guy named Johnny Holiday.
Okay.
Abe Laborio got me the gig with Johnny,
Right.
Abe Jr. He's like, "What are
Okay.
you doing right now?" I was like, "I'm just leaving a session." He's like, "You want to go on the road?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. When? Right now. We got to be
Like,
here right
come to
now."
the airport. Yeah. Right.
We just fired the bass player, and I had a week to learn like 35 songs.
Woo.
Anyway, after going through that whole year and then sending the family away, I just had a minute to just sit down, and then I could just record.
Mhm.
Because I've been recording since I was a kid. I always loved it.
Yeah.
And, when you have like one cassette deck and then you have a second cassette deck and then you're doing overdubs back and forth, or my friend Lucci, who had his reel to reel
Yeah. Yeah.
with sound on sound.
Okay.
And this guy, Paul Goldberg, this great drummer, Paul Goldberg, and Bob Sterling, the 3 of us, we would record and create these things. But I had that for myself
Yeah.
for the first time. So it was just nice to just exhale,
Right.
because we tend to not do that much.
Sure.
And then once we do, we don't realize the importance of the beauty of it.
Mhm.
Because there's something about listening to the sound of ourselves exhale.
Mm.
It's nice.
Yeah. 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 Do you have uh another outlet besides music where you find that regularly to keep a balance? Because I know
I,
sometimes music is just the job, and it's not always the release because it's the job.
yeah,
Sometimes it's the thing you
yes,
need the
absolutely,
release from.
I
Yeah.
agree with you wholeheartedly. I shoot Olympic archery,
Okay.
and I have for the last 15, 16 years, I guess,
Okay.
something
Do you
like that.
find? I mean, obviously, I'm there is, I believe, an art and a science to pretty much everything in the world. But do you mentally relate it to music while shooting archery? Do you find the same characteristics, and can you make those parallels?
I have been able to make some parallels. It's been able to help me with my posture.
Hmm.
So, as I age, like I was playing upright the other night on a gig, and I could feel my body, but like tensing up and different things because I'm holding everything up.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
with archery, it is a requirement to keep the cage down, keep it solid. Control your breathing, have a solid core, and so it's almost like, as my coach would say, instead of lifting everything, it's just hinges.
yeah,
So with those hinges, keeping the shoulders down, but bringing the arms up, engaging the lats more,
yeah.
I'm not in pain
Right.
because we all do it. I can't think of an upright player that's not doing this
Yeah,
or this as
yeah.
opposed to just this. There's a friend of mine in Paris, this great bass player named Vincent Pasquier, and he would talk about playing with an open sound, and his body is so relaxed. And this dude is one of my favorite bass players of all time, aside from being a great friend. He plays in such a relaxed state. Now, I've talked to him ad nauseum about that, and I didn't get it until I started shooting.
Hmm.
Not at all. It's neighbors walking the dog. It's great.
It's all
I have
good.
the windows open. It's nice.
It is nice. Yeah, thankfully not raining either yet. I don't know if it's supposed to today.
It's supposed
Uh,
to rain a little more.
did where did he find that discipline? Was he in martial arts, or did he do something that outside of music that kind of got him to get that
He
discipline together?
he raced cars,
Ah,
and he still
okay.
races. He races in France now. He has a Porsche that he races. You know.
Let's kill it.
Oh yeah, he's bad. He's principal bass player of the Paris Orchestra.
Oh,
Dude's
dope.
dope.
Okay,
he's
okay.
he's for real though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So then you come into the music now with this relaxed posture and keeping all this tension out. How is that impacting your playing? I mean,
It
obviously
allows
it's going to
me,
be more relaxed.
right. If I'm not
Yeah.
in pain, it allows
Good.
me some freedom of motion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that sort of, like we have our instruments at different heights for different things.
Yeah.
Like the Stanley's a rare beast in the way that he plays. He is. I mean, I
Yeah.
played bass for 4 years, and I saw some stuff that I can't even explain to this day. And I'm an old man now. I still can't explain it. You know, uh, but beyond that, it's like we have what I teach, and when I was teaching in the classes is about, because we would go through some sort of punk styles. Whether I was going through Sid Vicious or whether I was going through Mike, it's in there, or even Flea for that matter. Um, Having the bass a little bit lower to relax the tendons. So you can
Mhm.
play like, all night long while you're drinking beer and like fighting,
Yeah.
it's
Right,
just,
right, right. Yeah. Oh, right. Or getting sucker punched,
or
whichever
getting
way.
sucker punched,
Yeah.
or using
Whoever's
the
doing the
music stand.
damage in that exchange.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at Jocko and Jeff Berlin, same thing.
Hmm.
No, Jocko and Bunny Brunel more than anything,
Mm. Yeah.
especially Bunny, changing how the hand position works. So
Right.
they have that relaxed freedom.
Right.
For me, it's the same thing. If I'm relaxed, then I can play whatever I want. If I'm
Sure.
not, I can't. My
Right.
body
Right.
tenses up, tightens up. You find me doing this all night or this because it all trickles down.
How did it change? Did you change actually how your relationship to the electric bass when you played? Did you play it with more of an angle? Did you adjust
I
the strap height?
I still vary it according to the music because I still in my head I'm still serving the music first more than my own comfort.
Okay. So
But if I'm
you're
relaxed,
right. You want to be relaxed, but then if you're playing a rock tune or a punk tune, something with some,
oh, bass
angsty,
is
well,
low,
you'll really kind of assume the role, almost like a character actor.
almost. The
Yeah.
bass will definitely be below my waist,
Okay.
and I'm,
Get a pick.
oh, tons. I'm a big fan of the pick.
Really? I could never do it, man.
Oh
I
man,
I could
well,
never
you have
get
to
that
look at like
together.
Anthony studied with Pat Martino,
Right.
so he had that. But I mean, if you listen to Jack Cassidy, if you listen to Chris Squire, Andy West, remember Andy West? He was in the
Oh,
Dixie
what?
Dregs.
Okay. I haven't heard that name in a
Um,
long time.
John Wetton. Even sometimes you'd find the Ox might play with a pick from time to time. But
Uh,
I just always
when did
dug
you
it.
develop it? Like, I remember doing a session up in Santa Clarita one time. And they're like, cool, like the part, let's try it with the pick. I'm like, okay. And it was just not like hold on, let me get this pick together for a minute. Like
I think
it's a
it's.
thing.
I mean, I played some guitar as a kid, but there's this band called Friends. This guy Steve, I can't remember his name. Really great guitarist and singer. And I said, man, I need to really work on. I think I might have been like 17 or 18 at the time.
Hmm.
And I said, I need to really work on my pick thing. So he gave me this one exercise. He gave me actually two, a simple chromatic exercise for alternate picking. And then this one little phrase that I mean, I heard this in what, 81, right? Is that,
Some of it translates, then they cut that from it.
yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's all
I'm,
good. It's all,
I've
yeah,
got
it's not like
I've got my iPad and I added,
yeah, that's fine.
I'm looking for my other pair of in-ears, which attaches to the other computer.
Uh,
But it was just a simple picking thing with
okay.
string crossing,
Yeah.
you know. And then he would say, just pick everything. So
Yeah.
the spider exercises when I was a teenager, I'd pick through all of those. I picked through every aspect of everything,
Yeah.
you know. And then try to cop, try to play like Anthony, try to nail it,
Right.
or try to play it like Chris Squire, or Felix Popularity, or any of those cats, or Gene Simmons,
Right.
just to try to nail and be authentic. That's the big thing, is being authentic with anything that I would do.
Sure.
So, and that's what all the elders would say. Like cats today, nothing against them, nothing against the gospel chops. There are some brilliant bass players out there. They can do their thing, mind you. But what helped Coltrane to develop his sound, and I mean he had a sound, was he really studied. He studied Don Byett. He studied Lester Young. He studied Coleman Hawkins, even studied his contemporaries. He loved Sonny Rollins. He would
Right.
talk about it. For me, it's the same thing. I study the modern cats. These things, man, I can't play what Damien plays. I can't play what Hadrian plays. I can't play what Matt Garrison plays. But I still study it.
Yeah.
I still learn from it. And if you can learn how to do any of those things and stay relaxed.
We'll be back right after this.
Right, the middle of this show, features are brought to you by the International Society of Bassists, commonly referred to as ISB. Stop by isbworldoffice.com for everything you need to know about latest news, happenings, events, what have you. Information on players, albums, all kinds of wonderful things. isbworldoffice.com. Folks, for listeners that have been with me since the early days of the podcast, my guest on episode number 5 was Gary Wiggs. Gary Wiggs now has a new group titled Is That You? The band Is That You has a new EP out. EP is a collection of 4 cinematic instrumentals with nods to 70s funk, and it also incorporates modern electronic elements. It has this overarching feel of just like throwback crime story music. You'll know what I mean when you listen to it. You absolutely should. EP Split 5 Ways is really killing. I hope you all take a few minutes to check it out. It is on all the major streaming platforms. I will have a link to it in the show notes. Again, the group is titled Is That You? And their debut EP titled Split 5 Ways. Check it out.
Excellent, sir.
I think that's you bring up a great point of still studying not only past figures but present figures. You mentioned some studying a wide variety of people from Gene Simmons to Anthony Jackson. Who were the ones that you really locked into that in younger years you're like, yeah, I want my career to emulate that. I want my style to emulate that. I want my sound to emulate that.
I I didn't think about my sound emulating anything with the exception of Stanley.
Mm-hmm.
I was a Stanley Clarke nut
Okay.
as a kid. And
Yeah.
in fact, in my school yearbook, I was voted most likely to be Stanley Clarke. It's hilarious. It's pretty funny.
So your school days were about being school days. Yeah.
I remember when did I buy it or my mother bought the Journey to Love album?
Okay.
And I got in trouble for something, like bad grades, because I missed like 3 months of school because I'd sit in the basement of the school getting high with my friend Brett Sims and playing upright duets.
Okay.
And I stole the record out of my mom's room, and because I had to listen to it. And I said, you can take away whatever you got. I respect that, but I had to hear this music. So, because Stanley was, he played upright great. He was playing with Joe Henderson. He was playing with Chick, and then he's playing with RTF. Then he's playing with the New Barbarians.
Mm-hmm.
So he had this wide range. That's what I thought of, and then he could still bow. That's what I thought a bass player should be. So, but beyond that, then I would just listen. I was stuck on Jeff Berlin for a while, like all those years that he was with Bill Bruford. He was dealing, separate from Joe Frazier. The first solo I ever heard of his was on the One of a Kind album, Travels with Myself and Someone Else.
Okay.
I have it transcribed somewhere. Like the first time I tried to play it, I couldn't. And then when I started studying with this guy named Dennis Sandole, when I started studying with Mr. Sandole, after a month with him, I just wrote out Jeff's solo.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Yeah, Dennis was amazing. He taught Mike Brecker, he taught Train, he taught Stanley, he taught most of the people who came through Philly.
What I do at some point, if we have time, I do want to talk about the early years on the East Coast. But I do want to talk about Mr. Sandole for a second. What was it that obviously your ears developed and were taking leaps and bounds to just be able to write out the Jeff Berlin? What kind of things was he having you do? What kind of exercises to get the training?
Well, he would have different things. And I've become really lazy now, so my brain is like oatmeal with too much salt and not enough sugar. He would have the lessons would be grouped in 4 weeks, pretty much but everybody's lesson is different. So the A week, he writes out a melody, and then you harmonize it.
Okay.
And you have to play it in all 12 keys. I had to play it in all 12 keys on piano, and all 12 keys on my bass.
Okay.
Second week, I write out the melody, or he writes out the harmony, and I have to make a melody. Do the same thing. 12 keys on piano, 12 keys on my bass. The third week, the C week, is solfege. 4 bars in it's an old book, and I don't know where that book is. So it's fixed do, movable do, and a vowel of my choice. Sight sing.
Okay.
And the fourth week is transcribe 8 bars of something. In my case, it was Giant Steps. I'd have to transcribe it without the instrument. He would make me do that.
Who picked Giant Steps?
He did, because he taught Train. Because Naima was a lesson.
Oh,
Naima
okay.
was as my friend Nick Rossi would say, Naima was a B week. You could hear it.
Hmm.
So it was his choice, you know.
Okay.
And now my lessons would be completely different from my friend Craig Thomas, who was another mentor. But we were all studying with Dennis.
Yeah.
Like at a certain point after a year with Dennis, he wanted me to start playing chord changes on upright and take my bow and string it through the bass so that I was playing full chords for everything.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't ready for that. That's when I
Yeah.
snapped. Like after a year and a half with him, I kind of snapped. So I was studying
So
with him, and I was studying with Neil Courtney from the Philly Orchestra at the same time,
okay.
and
Those are
gigging every
two.
night.
Those are two very different. I don't know what the curriculum was from the classical teacher, but you have this deeply philosophical, artistic, and like really internalizing all this music. And then what were you getting from the classical musician? Were you getting a lot of just method books and excerpts and?
Just facility, because I was really horrible with the bow,
Hmm.
and just really, and my intonation sucked. So he just wanted to make that better.
Okay, so it was that those lessons were more mechanics, and then you had all this concept and musicianship
Well, there's mechanics, but
ethos.
there's poetics to it too. I mean, being able
Sure.
to play with the stick and create a beautiful sound, not only a controlled sound, but a free sound, because
Mhm.
that's similar to what my friend Vince was talking about before, playing with an open sound. So
Right.
that has to be worked on beyond mechanics. You have
Uh-huh.
to free a person up from that, from their
Right.
restraints,
Right.
And then Dennis had a whole other thing, and I was still listening to music and playing with these great musicians in Atlantic City at the time. Like I played some of the hardest music ever. Aside from, the years with Billy Childs, no, I'd say Atlantic City was really, really complicated.
Okay. What years were you with Billy Child? I think the last time I heard him live was with Robert Hurst. It was like '02. It was a long
Oh
time
yeah,
ago.
I mean, I met Billy when I first moved to LA. We started playing in '88. We play off
Okay.
and on. I mean, he has a lot of bass players, a lot of great bass players play with him.
Yeah.
Um, and I just met him for lunch last week.
Oh, wonderful.
But I think the last time I played with him,
I think he
ooh,
just won a Grammy, right? Did I hear that
yeah, he
right?
did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah, I talked to him that day. He was headed down there.
No, cool.
I think this is his fourth Grammy or something like that. He
Okay.
writes his butt off. He's
Yeah.
a brilliant writer. I think the last time I played with him was some years ago, though.
Okay.
Well, no, no, no. We met in Joey Heredia and we got together, played, had lunch.
Nice.
But out live was when Mike Baker was still alive, and was Bob Shepard, me, and Child.
Okay.
He's a he's through composed. A lot of that stuff is written out,
Yeah.
with the exception of some of the solo sections. Everything's written out. That's why Jimmy Johnson crushes it.
Yeah.
You know, and Tony Dumas at the time.
Right. Right. I haven't heard that name in a long time either.
Yeah, I think he has invested his money, made a bunch of bread. He just does what he wants.
Good for him. Good for him.
Smart.
Man, that's yeah.
That's how it's
That,
done.
that's the move. That is the move, damn it.
That's how it's done. And
Yeah, absolutely.
this conversation would happen on a beach somewhere.
Yeah, right. With some Mai Tais.
Mai Tais
Um,
and some chicks holding mics for us because we don't feel like having mic
yeah.
stands. Mic stands aren't organic.
Yeah, right.
So Penelope,
Um,
hold that SM-47
Penelope.
for.
But yeah, I still want to talk about the years on the East Coast. I also wanted to discuss when I met you, you were playing a jazz festival with Patrice Rushen. How long you been working with her, and in addition to that, what other artists are you working with currently?
Right now I quit my Chris Bodie gig. I left after 5 years.
I
My
remember you
body
talking
needed,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, my body needed the break. So I do sessions here.
Okay.
They send me files. I can record. I've got a great upright sound. Dave Perlman made me a killer FET 47. I've got
Nice.
killer mic pre's, and I have every bass sound I need.
What are you using
Yeah.
from Mike Prey? I was just talking to Dark Holes about his home rig setup.
For me, I have A Designs Audio because
Okay.
Pete Montez, he's like a brother to me, and he has saved my life.
Nice.
But I use the Ready Tube DI,
Mhm.
and then
Sure.
I go to the P1 mic pre.
Okay.
Then I have a custom BAC with a different transformer. I have a stainless steel transformer in that one,
Huh.
as opposed to nickel.
Okay.
And then it's like a Pultec EQ, the EMP EQ. I have another mic pre that I use a lot, which I like to use with a microphone. Carl Johnson had made it for me, and it's all point to point.
Mm.
There's no PC boards in there at all.
Oh wow.
And I'll go the FET 47. I used to do this TV show. What was it? Anger Management. And
Okay.
so all of the anger management stuff was that setup. It was
Okay.
those two pre's, and then I would use
Did you cut those sessions at the house?
anger management was cut. No, that was cut at a studio in Van Nuys because I took both the pre's. I took my bass there because I forget who was playing, but it was Denny Sidewell playing drums, I think. It was interesting. It was
Yeah.
interesting. But the sound was great because I would use a Fishman BP 100
Okay.
and the Crown microphone
Yeah.
for that going into the Ventura preamp, which had the great parametric EQ, and then for the P1 and everything else, I would have I'd have the FET 47, so I could
Okay.
have the control with the full tech.
Yeah.
And of course, I've got a bunch of readies. This is at least when I go to a studio and I take the ready from the signal I give them to their preamp, I know it's control. I have
Right.
control of it.
Yeah.
You know, I have a lot of basses, of course. This the Federas,
Hmm.
this headless five string that Vinny and Joey made for me because I was flying, I don't know, 200 days out of the year with
Now
Bodie.
on this topic, having a 5 string made for you, you also made your own 5 string.
Oh, the Fender?
Yeah, well, way back in the day, right? Did I read
Oh
this correctly?
yeah,
You
yeah.
modified
It was
your own
I
5
was
string.
I was doing I had a Federa 6 and there was this guitarist. I was doing a gig with this guitarist named Jeff Lee Johnson. It was Jeff Lee Johnson, Ted Greenberg, Demetrius Pappas, and Melanie Rice. We used to do these gigs, and Ted and I were running back and forth from the showrooms to go to the lounge to do this gig. So
Okay.
Jeff Johnson used to play with Rochelle Farrell and George Duke. He
Mhm.
passed on some years ago. Uh, he made me buy a Squire, a Fender Squire.
Yeah.
He's like, it's the best $200 you ever spent. He said, and after you do that, go get some Olympic pickups and put it in there. And I was like, you sure? He's like, shut up. Just do what I tell you. You won't get hurt.
Okay.
You know. And I did. I went to H Street Music in Philly. I bought a set of Olympic pickups, popped them in there. Bass was stunning.
Mhm.
And then I was doing this record. This guy, Mike Pedersen. In fact, this stuff is online. I found it.
Oh, yeah?
And I was playing the Federa, and Mick, who was my longtime friend, said, I need this other sound. I need you to play the Fender. And I got offended. I was like, this
Sure.
bass is amazing.
Right.
He's like, I need this other sound. And so I used the Squire and it was perfect. Then I got to LA and everybody was wanting the jazz sound, but I still wanted the D string because I was an early, I had a Steinberger five string in 83,
Okay.
you know, and then I got my first Federa in 84, which is coming up on the anniversary, March 20th.
Okay.
So it's coming up on 40 years.
Yeah.
And well, I was in LA and, Through the Fire had come out. And the low end were fighting synthesizers. So I took the Squire, I drilled a hole into the headstock, found a Chandler bridge. So it was, it's like 16 spacing,
Right.
like 16 millimeter, maybe 15.7 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I used it on everything I did for Stanley, like Passenger 57. I used it on the beginning of The Preacher's Wife with Whitney. I
Oh wow.
used it on a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff, and it sounded great. The neck finally gave out, and I gave the body to Michael Braun, who was who I designed the electronics with for my Fender Signature model.
Okay. Um.
But yeah.
Let's talk about the Fender Signature model, and let's also talk about the electric upright, since you were in
Oh
the
yeah.
in the merchandising business of building your own basses.
I
you
think
weren't you weren't retail, but let's talk about the Fender first. Let's
although
talk about
Daryl
the
Jones
Signature.
did talk to me about that.
About your upright?
Well, no, Daryl, he wanted me to go into business with him, so we started making basses together. Because I've
Oh,
known Daryl
really?
since I was 17,
Okay.
you know. And I was like, no, man, it's just too much for me. He did it. He was smart.
Yeah.
He's smart. I'm dumb. He's right. I'm wrong. You know. But yeah, the electric upright came out of a need because I was playing in different places, and I wanted to leave a bass there.
Mhm.
And so I made that stick bass in my apartment with some carving knives. Um, yeah, a bench
I love this.
saw.
I love this. I love the DIY.
It was total
Yeah.
DIY. In fact,
Yeah.
there's a guy named Tom Hawk, who's a guitarist, and I took some lessons from him because I wanted to work out some left hand stuff when I was a kid. And I used to walk by his shop, and he had this bass neck, beautiful curly maple neck, great scroll. And I was like, with the fingerboard on it. I was
Yeah.
like, man, is that for sale? He's like, no, man. And this was in a flood in Italy, and it was my grandfather's, and the bass saved his life. I was like, so how about $150? That sold. It went just like that. And
Yeah,
so
it's awesome.
I put that neck on the mahogany, and it was basically I had two planks of mahogany. They were 2 inches deep, no, 3 inches deep, and they were 1 by 3.
Okay.
So I cut one into three pieces and glued the front and back to the top to support the heel of the neck, and I put one
Yeah.
on the bottom so I could have a little bit more balance for the bridge and for the tailpiece.
Hmm.
And I used wood glue and some clamps, right?
the
And
the shop class bass.
oh, you're not kidding. And then when
Yeah.
I got to LA, I started chopping it down. And then Bob Doherty, man, my
What'd you
memory
do for an
is
end pin?
on. For an end pin, there was another guy named Mark Egan who was a bass player in town.
Yeah.
He also went to Philly, God rest his soul. He said,
Oh,
Reggie,
Mark
for
Egan,
an end.
not Mark Egan, not Pat Metheny, Mark Egan.
No, no, no.
Okay.
No, wasn't Mark Egan. It was Mark. You're right. It was Mark, I forget Mark's name. He's gone now. But he suggested that I get there used to be these little mounts for the side of ladders that you could hike up. They're basically a tube with a lock,
Okay.
and you sort of like you could hit the lever to like
Oh yeah,
retract
yeah.
it, but it would
Right.
just. He
Yeah.
said, "Man, get one of those," and I did, and it was great. I
Okay.
took 4 screws in the back, and you just hike it up, get it to
Yeah.
the height you want it, and then when you're done, you just hit the lever, and close it back down, throw it in the bag, and be gone. But that's what I did for the end pin. And eventually, and what was his name? Rich Thomas, who used to work for Stanley. He was the guy that developed those. You have the locking guitar stands, and the
Yeah.
mounts come down. Rich developed that. I think he got ripped off.
Uh, the company is Hercules that
Yeah,
really has
but he
that a lot
developed it
now.
way before that.
Okay. Okay.
Because if you saw Stanley Clarke's old racks, it would have these two stands to hold the basses sitting
And
in
then
the
the
rack
little gate in front.
with clothes, right?
Yeah.
So he made a stand for me. He spot welded this stand and mounted it to a Tama heavy duty drum stand so the bass could
Okay.
just stand alone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I used for years. And
Okay.
I gave the bass to my nephew some years back,
Okay.
but I used it on a lot of movies. I mean, it had an odd but wonderful sound.
Yeah.
It was a
What
synth. It was an upright. You couldn't tell.
when you would roll into a movie session with a homemade
Oh my
bass,
gosh.
what were the looks like? What were the looks like from like all the union?
Well, even that was like there was this one contractor, Reggie Wilson, who did all the Disney stuff. He's like, yeah, bring the ugly bass too. He'd always say that. I was doing some cartoon called Pepper Ann.
Okay.
What was Pat's name? He was the guitarist in B-52,
Oh, I don't know.
but he had called us to play on stuff, and I used to bring that. He's like, Reggie's like, yeah, man, don't forget to bring the ugly bass because Pat wants the ugly bass. But yeah, they would look like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. What's going on here? What's going on
yeah.
here?
Oh my,
Yeah.
the percussion section will always be cool, and the bass section will always be cool. Beyond that, it gets a little weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Let's talk about the signature. You have a signature for Fender.
Yeah, I did. They ran from 2001 to 2015.
Okay. Good
It
run.
started when they were coming up with was Richard McDonald and Dan Smith, and they would have a shootout, and they'd have all the bass players come because they were coming out with a new series of Fenders,
Mhm.
and they'd had exotic woods and the like. And so I brought my '96 Jazz Deluxe or '95 Jazz Deluxe that I got from Alex Perez, and I brought my '67 Jazz with the Olympics in it that I had modded so it could be either a Q filter or just a tone control with the switch. You had like a
So
double
this
throw,
wasn't
double
the
throw, and a little
Squire that.
cap. No, this was my
Okay.
67 that I used on a lot of other stuff.
Okay.
You know. And this bass blew everything they had away. These two basses blew everything they had away.
Yeah.
And I said, you guys have 85% of the market. And why are you trying to chase these little boutique shops? It makes no sense. You don't have the time to waste doing that.
Right.
And they offered me a signature model. The big thing about it was, the signature model is just sort of a gift. They ended up just using what was in my head. Like the first custom classic jazz came out of my signature model. They didn't release my bass. And the first custom jazz 5 with the 21 frets and the like, that was my bass, which was already done. That was all
Oh.
mine stuff. The 5-bolt plate came from me. The active passive circuitry that's in all the elites and all those jazzes, that's basically my signature model.
Okay.
Asymmetrical neck,
Mm-hmm.
but I did nitro.
Yeah.
It's
Good.
a lovely bass. I still use it.
So, but your bass, your signature was a PJ, correct?
It's a PJ.
Yeah.
The P pickup I moved it so that I could play all the same harmonics with just the P pickup that I could play with the J pickup, which is very unusual because you can't do that.
Okay.
You can't do that.
So what'd you do? Move it back?
You want me to say? I can't say.
I mean, I'll edit it out. I want to know just for me. We'll cut
just for
this
you?
part out. Yeah, let me hold on. Let
just-
me timestamp this for myself. 57:15. Cut it out. Okay.
All right. Yeah. So you put put SpongeBob in this section. We'll be
Yeah,
right back.
that's right. We'll be right back.
So Mark Hendrick made the neck, the first
Okay.
neck for me. Mark Hendrick is the guy that made the Clapton Strat. And when last I talked to him, he was running the Fender Mexico.
Okay, so
Mark
he's still over there at Fender.
I hope he is because he's brilliant. He's
Great.
brilliant. I met him and John English and Jay Black when I first got to town. Brilliant guys. And then Alan Hamill, which I hope he's still around, he made the device so that we could find the pickup placement. It was a rack. It was a rack that sat on top of the bass. So it had these two tubes and then a slot to put the pickup
Yeah,
in
okay.
so you could move it. Like it was a Gibson grabber, but for tech.
Right.
So you could move the pickup anywhere you wanted to find exactly what was right, then you mark it and be done.
Okay.
And then as far as the jazz bass pickup, I put it where the 65 is.
Okay.
Or my 6 or my 67, they're exactly the same.
Right, a little bit more forward. 70s, it went closer to the bridge.
closer to bridge.
Yeah.
And I think that wasn't a conscious decision. That was more of a problem that they had in the shop, where everybody thinks it was a thing. That wasn't it.
Yeah, I've never heard this story. I just knew about the two placements. I have a signature bass with D Lake, and we were. It's a Music Man pickup, but we were deciding where to put the rear coils of the Music Man, and there was
Right.
that was a whole conversation, like 60s, 70s, and then he was shooting me videos of the bass he built for Pino, and like, no, it's a Music Man, but it's standard Music Man spacing. I'm like, I'm looking for something different. But I never understood why the 60s, 70s shift with Fender. I just knew that it existed.
Yeah, it wasn't so much that we need a brighter bass.
Yeah,
I think it was just an accident. And that shift didn't happen till like late 73, early 74, when they were still using a 4-bolt plate.
okay.
So that happened before 75 with the 3-bolt plate. I'm still a fan of the older pickup placement.
Yo, this is Craig Gash. Subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on the Instagram, the YouTube. Leave us a comment.
All right. That was my talk with Reggie Hamilton. Reggie's deep. There was intent. There was a focus that I felt from him the entire conversation. And like I talked about at the beginning, that alone is a lesson in how we can engage with people and how we can engage musically. Heavy. I remember that conversation. We stayed on the phone for like 3 hours or something. Kept talking, going down different rabbit holes. I think at one point we decided we were going to start a bass company together. It was hip. It was an honor to have Reggie on the podcast, and thank you, Mr. Reggie Hamilton, for taking the time. That's about all I got, folks. That's about all I got for this one. I'll catch you on the next one in a minute.